WVUA-FM, Tuscaloosa.
And hello, everyone, to a brand new episode of this week's 3-Point Conversion. I'm, of course, your host, Carson Keel, and I am joined by
Adam Hambright.
And we have a lot to talk about. XFL Week 1, USFL College Draft, and, of course, looking at XFL Week 2. So, let's go ahead and get started. So, again, the XFL kicked off Week 1. They, of course, started in Arlington because everything's based in Arlington this year, just about, with Vegas at Arlington. Interesting game. I know you said before you didn't get to watch a couple of the games, but I guess did you see kind of the aftermath of Vegas and Arlington, kind of that just a defensive game that Arlington put on?
Yeah, I mean, I got to see, a little bits and pieces of it. I was having to do a lot of stuff over the weekend, but, still wanted to get a little bit of, spring football in there. Everything looked, pretty good for a first weekend, especially like a first game. It was football. Who doesn't like more football? And then, it was a great game. Got the my phone's messing up right now. But final score 22-20 in the first game of the XFL. Very entertaining. Kind of slow starting off. A lot of these games were, but definitely picked up and was a good product.
So I know you didn't see this exact game, but I guess what's your thoughts on starter Luis Perez for Vegas throwing 4 touchdowns, but technically 2 of them were only for Vegas. The other 2 were for Arlington.
Yeah. I'm not sure how good of a showing it is if you're trying to make it to the next level.
Right.
But we'll see how the season goes out. First game. I mean, I've seen NFL quarterbacks struggle with interceptions now and then, and obviously these guys aren't in the NFL right now. I was hoping for a little bit better. You don't want to see 2 pick sixes, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, speaking of a team that could have, one's a little bit more, Orlando at Houston to wrap up day 1. Orlando, not exactly their best game, of course. Houston winning 33-12. I guess Orlando probably showing that they're the weakest squad at the moment in the XFL. It's kind of disheartening because there's a couple of players on that team that I love, especially Andrew Jamil, who, if you happen to be following kind of Fangers World Football, he was a mainstay for the first 2 seasons. Was hoping for him to kind of see some success here. He had a pretty good game, got a touchdown, but still, Orlando, possibly we have a very quick look at possibly the worst team in this league.
Yeah, so far looks like the worst team. Obviously, week 1, we'll learn a lot more in the coming weeks. But it was kind of what we were saying before, how this whole setup this season really was going to benefit all these Texas-based teams.
Right.
And, first 2 games, you have Arlington and Houston coming out with a win. But then I guess you kind of should have seen this coming from Orlando when they had Paxton Lynch as their starting quarterback, who is now, I believe, the first person to ever be benched in like every professional football league.
Benched in the USFL, benched in the CFL, benched in the NFL. I don't think he's playing the ELF yet. So
yeah. I mean, he didn't play terrible. He was 15 of 21. He had a touchdown and 1 interception. But when your team's not really playing the best anyway, he might need to make a move. He might, be back in the starting lineup. We'll see. But that's got to be a bummer for him.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And then our next game, so moving on to the Sunday games, this was kind of the game of the week in my opinion. St. Louis at San Antonio. A big comeback for, of course, the former Alabama champion, A.J. McCarron, after a not-so-great start to the game for him. And all that. I guess you mentioned to see this game. Thoughts on kind of how each team did, because this was an extremely close game until the very end.
So this one, it was another game where it was kind of following the same formula, where it was going to be the Texas team that comes out on top. And, it started off for St. Louis. They weren't really playing the best, but they were able to keep it, within striking distance, especially with how the XFL rules are. Now, A.J. McCarron finished the game 18 of 26, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns. But going into the final, minute and a half of this game, it's 15-3. You don't really think there's any chance that, with how St. Louis have been playing, that they were going to make this comeback. They go down, they score the touchdown. Mm-hmm. So that's A.J. McCarron's first touchdown.
Right.
Then they do the 3-point conversion this time, which is new for a lot of football fans to see.
It was, of course, in the USFL last year, so say that.
But, this is the first time we're seeing it with the XFL, and now this is the third time. So they get the 3-point conversion. They make it to where it's now only a 3-point game. It's 15-12. Then they go for the onside conversion, not the onside kick, because they go
4th and 15.
4th and 15. They get that, go down, score, and end up winning the game 18-15. So it was a really entertaining game. It kind of showed you everything that the game can be.
Yeah.
And then, seeing a former Alabama quarterback, do well. It didn't look like that for most of the game, but at the end, he picked it up, and he was very emotional after the game, and hopefully that'll continue on. So we can have more good football, but also not just have every team in Texas win all the games.
Yes. Well, again, like we saw, 2 for 3 in the Texas teams. And then finally, the last game, Seattle at DC, the only game that wasn't in the state of Texas. Quite controversial, but not for on-the-field play. We'll talk about that in a second. But first off, DC winning in a comeback against Seattle 22-18. I thought both teams played good. Seattle, I think they didn't hit their entire stride. I'm very interested to see how they play this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, it'll be real interesting keeping an eye on them. Their quarterback, Danucci, 35 of 54. 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. So not the best in that category, but that's a lot of passes. I don't think we kind of imagined that going into week 1 that you were just going to have your quarterback throw 54 passes in a game.
And imagine that where your wide receivers are used to a full-time game setting. Yeah. I mean, that's going to be big.
Yeah, and then we spoke about him a little bit last time, but Josh Gordon, 6 catches, 74 yards, gets his first touchdown in the XFL. And when was the last time he scored a touchdown in a football game? It's been a while.
2021 maybe?
It was, a couple years at least, with all of his issues that he had with the NFL. But, now with the Seattle Sea Dragons, they didn't come out with the win, but they looked good. Yes. It was a fun game to watch.
So, we kind of alluded to this before. Did you see the beer steak controversy?
I did. I saw it. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the beer steak.
Yes, I was staple in 2020.
I was very upset that security came and took it away. But then, the fans were more upset than I was because they started throwing lemons on the field. And, for a while, all of us that aren't at the game were like, where are they getting all these lemons from? Did everybody just bring it in? And apparently, it was in one of the drinks up there.
Yeah.
But I think we should just let the fans have fun. I mean, this league, right?
It's supposed to be fun.
It's football for the fans. It's on their website. It's on their merchandise. Let them have fun. Let the beer snake come back. Maybe the teams in Texas, maybe the fans over there can have more fun than the ones in D.C. Maybe they just don't like, fun in the nation's capital.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically a lot of politicians. Who knows? Yeah. But that's kind of covering XFL Week 1. Again, just to go over the losers and winners again, one more time. Arlington over Vegas, Houston over Orlando, St. Louis over San Antonio, and then DC over Seattle. All right. Before we talk about the XFL Week 2, though, the USFL, they made some of their own noise this weekend, and they had a USFL college draft. So let me kind of go over. It happened today, the day we're recording. So we're going to go. There's a couple of highlights we want to talk about, but kind of the idea about this draft. You go back and you think about the original USFL. They were going for the same high quality talent as the NFL. This had a similar idea, but in the same vein of, okay, we expect there's a good chance these guys get cut from their teams. We have the right of first refusal, where we have these rights. They'll come in, they'll sign with us, or they'll say, no, thank you, we'll move on.
Yeah.
So, again, when we're talking about these names, it's a lot of, okay, we expect these guys to get cut, unfortunately. So I think the biggest one was, of course, the Stallions. Malik Cunningham, I think that's kind of a big one. Everyone was very kind of shocked to see happen. I guess your thoughts on that?
I think it was a very smart pick from them. He showed flashes in college. He's a very entertaining player to watch. I would love to see him at the Stallions, defending champions, obviously, anytime they can add, some good players. That was kind of, a big, name that kind of popped out. You didn't really expect it. We'll see what happens. It was really interesting how it's happening where you're not drafting them to just have the players like the NFL does. It's you're waiting to see if you actually have these players. So it'll be interesting. I would love to see him in Birmingham. Also, a couple other guys. We're not going to go through the whole list of who everybody picked.
It was only 80 players, but still, it's just very dry.
But what I did like that Birmingham did, they did draft 2 players from UAB.
Right.
They got Kadeem Telfort, offensive tackle in round 1, and then they got Starling Thomas, the 5th defensive back in the final round. I believe the final pick, actually. Yep. But a couple of local guys that you keep in Birmingham to kind of get more of the UAB fans to come. They were going to come anyway. Yeah. But, it's fun to see people that you've watched in college.
Yeah. And again, they really went for local guys. And Cunningham is from Montgomery. Yeah. And then they also got a former teammate of his, Ray Dubose, who played for Charlotte, again played for Parks Hill and Montgomery. So very interesting to see that happen. Again, I think the Birmingham and just about every team besides one all had a really good draft. New Orleans, you go back and look at that. It's not just, Birmingham, New Orleans rivalry, ha-ha. They legitimately did not have a good draft. It felt like they were betting on a lot of things, like really running back heavy. It was not super there. I mean, I guess overall, you're kind of. I'll let you kind of look. You got the list pulled up. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm pulling up the rest of the New Orleans draft. The Breakers.
Yes.
Right, and so they got a few guys where it's like maybe, but let's see. They had 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a couple linebackers, a couple of defensive backs. They drafted 1 defensive lineman, 1 offensive lineman, and then a linebacker. Yeah. I don't really know a lot about these guys. The guys that they drafted. There's nothing that really pops out at you. Kind of like, many people might not know the Stallions UAB guys that they drafted, if they didn't watch, UAB football. But, it's just none of these names really. Let's see. First pick, Tyler Scott. I'm trying to get the whole list over here. It's being slow. They got Tyler Scott, wide receiver from Cincinnati. It's not like if you're going to do it, go big. I don't know.
I again, like I said, the draft is basically kind of the idea of we expect these guys to get cut, but we want to try to get these rights at the same time. Again, I feel like side of the New Orleans camp, they could have done a little better, but still an interesting kind of look with all that. So let's go ahead and wrap things up. We have to look at the XFL Week 2, kind of our thoughts on where that could be going. So our first game, it's on Thursday, February 23rd. It's on FX at 8 p.m. Central. St. Louis is at Seattle. Thoughts on that possible game? And I got my prediction for who's going to win.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting for this game. We just talked about it, how these two teams, in the 2 games, they had 2 of the most entertaining games. Yeah. You did have there was one other game that was close. You had the one blowout, but these 2 games that happened on Saturday, with St. Louis making the comeback and then Seattle falling just short, but, the quarterback threw 54 times.
Yeah.
We'll see if they're able to keep it going into the second week. What I do like about St. Louis is, Seattle, they scored 18 points, but they didn't score in the fourth quarter at all. St. Louis didn't score pretty much the whole game, but then in the last couple minutes, I just want to see who carries the success over to week 2. I would like to see St. Louis do it, one with A.J. McCarron. Yeah. I'm not going to stop talking about him. Yeah. But, with them finishing the game like that, are they able to use that to use that momentum and make it to where they can start off the game like that maybe? And with Seattle, can they get kind of that momentum because they had it in the first and the third quarter. But they didn't really do good in the second and the fourth quarter. Can they put together a whole game? Seattle gets it at home. Last time they were in D.C. where they don't like to have fun. So maybe there's a little bit more fun in Seattle. I'm probably still going to go with St. Louis in this one. But we'll see.
Okay. I gotta disagree with you. Again, This is the first home game for Seattle. I think their fans are going to be hyped for that. St. Louis, I think it was a fluke, that ending. I think San Antonio kind of blew it in the end. So I am saying we got a Seattle win upcoming here on Thursday.
I can see it, especially Seattle has some pretty good sports fans up there. They're definitely going to be excited to have football back and not have to wait all the way until the Seahawks play. And we'll see. But that's a good matchup. I like it.
All right, DC is at Vegas on Saturday, 6 p.m. Central. It's on FX. And this is at the Cashman Ballpark in Vegas. Your thoughts? I'm going to go with a DC win here personally.
I can see DC winning. They played good, but what I was about to say, it kind of went against what I just said on the last game. But now this is DC traveling. We don't know how these teams are going to travel yet, right? Yeah. So St. Louis, they could go up to Seattle and they could lose just because they're not used to traveling. We got DC, their first road game. They had the home game against Seattle, now at Vegas.
Well, again, just something to point out, everyone's traveling from Arlington. Yeah. So the DC did travel. So that's just something to kind of point out.
But this is how it's so weird with this league, right? Because you go practice in Texas all week, and then you travel to wherever you're playing the game at. So they did travel. They had the home field after the travel. Now they're traveling, and they have a hostile. I don't know how Vegas is going to handle the XFL. It'll probably be exciting because Vegas is a party town.
Yes,
that's a light way to put it. I think Vegas is going to win.
Yeah.
Just with the home field. But, I didn't pick the Seattle, so, I can't just say it for every game. But, for me, with the feeling in this one, I just feel like Vegas is going to, they played good in the first game. I thought they should have won. They didn't. Now they get a home game in front of the home rowdy fans of Las Vegas. We'll see if they can get it done.
All right. Well, so far we're split for two on the first two. Okay. I think we're going to be agreeing on this one. San Antonio at Orlando. That's on Sunday at 3 p.m. It's on ESPN. I think we both agree San Antonio is winning this game.
I'm going to pick San Antonio. Like we said, Orlando looks like the worst team so far. We'll see what happens, week 1 to week 2. I think the Texas teams have kind of shown that they're probably the best team so far. Obviously St. Louis did beat San Antonio, but like you said, it could have been a fluke. We don't know. They had a 15-3 lead with a couple minutes left in the game. I'm going to go with San Antonio. Hopefully Orlando can give their fans something to cheer about, but after the week 1, it doesn't look promising.
Yeah. All right, and then our final game. It's a very important game. Arlington is at Houston. That's on ESPN2 at 6 p.m. I'm going to go with Houston on this one. I think Vegas had some bad plays. Arlington did not look like themselves into the game besides that defense. Yeah. Houston, though, they have a great offense. I think they're going to plow through Arlington's defense without an issue.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Houston on this one, too. So it looks like we're going to split the first day. The second day we're all going to pick the same team. So we'll see what happens. But, obviously, Houston did play Orlando. Mm-hmm. We'll see how good Orlando is this week after a second game. We might still not have any idea. It's all weird with the spring leagues. You never know who's good and who's not.
Yeah.
But with Houston, they won 33-12 last week. On offense, quarterback 26 of 42. So, he's not the best completion percentage, but 272 yards. 2 touchdowns. Did throw 2 interceptions. I think their offense is going to put up similar numbers this week. Mm-hmm. We'll see. Arlington's defense did look good.
Yes.
So we don't know. We don't know right now. It's going to be the second week of this league. we think we know what we're talking about, but once again, nobody really knows.
Yeah, nobody really knows. All right. So your thoughts for Game of the Week? I think I'm going to say Arlington at Houston's probably going to be the one to watch if you have to watch one. I think your thoughts on that?
Definitely. That's if you can only get to one game, just watch that one. If you can watch all of them, watch all of them.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll know more than us after 2 weeks. I would like to see some of those other games, that are going places that we haven't seen. Obviously, they only had limited games last week. Seattle was in D.C. Now we get to see them in Seattle. There's a game in Vegas. I want to see how the fans show up for those games. Just to kind of see, what do they think about this league? Are those fans going to show up for these games? It'll be interesting. I'm going to try to get to watch more games. But if you can only get one, definitely Houston and Arlington.
All right. Well, very exciting weekend as we come up. We're getting closer to the USFL kickoff also, so a lot to talk about as we get closer. We'll see you guys next week. Exciting times in the world of spring football. Once again, I've been Carson Kiel.
Adam Hambright.
And we'll see you next week.
Good night.
WVUA-FM, Tuscaloosa.